We'll be covering the lore of the Transdimensional Era roleplay forums in this video, specifically of the Sil'nyy race. There's a lot of information, so it has been split between two videos. Part 1 is down in the video description below. By the time you see this video, the roleplay forums have become open to the Dragon and Maginus tiers of our Patreon. This video in lore mentions uncomfortable themes such as early death, slow death, death in general, violence, hazardous living conditions, child neglect, childhood trauma, loss of family, sacrificial punishment, being eaten alive, animal cruelty, shunning, banishment, unfair fights, talk of unfounded rumors, theft, assassination, murder, public torture, loss of home, homelessness, natural disaster aftermath, horrifying scenarios, and betrayal. Viewer discretion is advised. The Sil'nyy do not hold votes for clan leadership, nor do they inherit a throne. Instead, all clan members have a chance to become the leader of their clan through the Patrikios. Each clan gets a week, either in the month of winter, the month of spring, the month of summer, or the month of fall, in which they will be competing against each other within the arena of Central City to see who gets to go up against their current leader. This happens once a year, every year. However, this does not mean that their Maestro of the clan is constantly changing. The Sil'nyy at the head of their clan are at the head because they are the best of the best. Often, those who challenge them during the Patrikios will fail, leaving them to reign for another year. During the Patrikios, regular members are pitted against each other. They are expected to represent their clan through battle. Warriors such as Urukgar are won mostly with strength. Taking down their opponent is the goal, just like any regular fight. The healers of Hognur'Gor, however, are required to outlast their opponent via healing potions and other tonics that they themselves have made and brought to the battle. Running out of these provisions and consequently running out of stamina to carry on or fainting in the middle of a battle, regardless of how many potions they brought, will result in a loss. Tacticians of Urukgar are allowed to fight dirty using just about anything they brought on the battlefield. Smiths of Ushmog can bring their own armor and weapons, but they had to be made custom by the Sil'nyy using it in battle. Brackets are set up similar to the competition of strength, where members of a clan go up against each other, 1 versus 1. Each of these rounds are limited on time, given about 3 minutes to take down their opponent. Those who lose their first rounds are expected to fight each other to win a last chance to remain in the Patrikios. Eventually, there are 2 fighters left, and once a winner between the two have been decided, said winner will get to go up against their current clan leader. This fight's time limit is extended to a full 24 hours, but they don't always go on that long. Should the original clan leader lose, they will mentor the new clan leader for a few days. Once a Sil'nyy loses their spot Master of the clan, they can never be clan leader again. They can still take on other jobs, but they're essentially retired. On occasion, a member of a clan will disagree with their Master of the clan and refuse to do as the Astro needed of them. More often than not, this will end in a tussle between the Master of the clan and the disobedient city, which the latter usually loses. However, some clan leaders have more creative approaches to handling Sil'nyy like this. Depending on the situation and subordination versus predictability or foresight of a different result than what the Master of the clan expected, a clap on the back and a happy Master of the clan may be all that happens. Sometimes the Master of the clan wants the Sil'nyy to refuse an order, not because they want to punish the Sil'nyy, but because they see the potential of that Sil'nyy becoming the next clan leader. Sometimes a feud between clans happens, and, in these cases, it can often be resolved through issuing challenges from one Master of the clan to another. Trouble directly caused by a Master of the clan's decision that affects another clan can also cause a nasty feud between clans. Some feuds in the past have been started over permission for hunting in each other's territories being revoked. This results in multiple clans being unhappy, not just the one who is revoked. Direct family members of the Master of the clan wreaking havoc on other clans members, or even just 2 of the clan leaders having pure hatred and disdain for one another. Resolutions that have been reached, depending on who won the brawl, can vary. If the challenger loses, the remaining 2 Master of the clans will be a deciding factor on whether or not the challenged Master of the clan should reach a compromise or stop the actions that are affecting the other clan entirely. Should the challenger win, the honorable thing for the losing Master of the clan is to cease the actions that are affecting the other clan. If they refuse, depending on how severe their actions against the opposing clan were, the losing Master of the clan can potentially be on the receiving end of a coup. In the best of situations, it would simply be a stain on their reputation. Activities such as murdering someone within one of their villages can have different outcomes, depending on how the person died. If there was a full-on brawl and someone bled out, the Sil'nyy are known to just shrug it off. That kind of stuff happens. However, if one were to kill someone who wasn't fighting back or wasn't given a chance to fight back, then the Sil'nyy would take issue. If it's a clan member committing a crime within a village not their own, they could be sent back to their own clan for punishment by their own master of the clan. Depending on the village the crime was committed in, the leader of that clan will be the one to dish out the punishment instead. In the cases where rules and punishments collide, compromises and agreements will be had, especially if clan members of multiple clans were the ones to commit the crime. Should the punishment not be up to the victims, or the family of the victim, standards, then a minor case of vigilantism might result. Since there are camps surrounding the arena, often filled by not only the Sil'nyy that live in Thumac's domain, but also by outsiders including other races, there are some formal rules that everyone should follow. These are not written, but are common knowledge, even to the other races that visit. These rules always existed, even prior to allowing outsiders to stay, and if they are not followed, then the person who broke them is immediately sent out via ferry to Selgamed or forced to fight in the arena, depending on the severity. Groups of outsiders need to have at least one challenger for the arena. There's always a booth, really it's just a small table next to the arena's entrance, where 2 volunteers of any Sil'nyy clan sit and accept entries to the next brawl or way of the Sil'nyy tournament. The rest of the group can sit and watch for entertainment. During their time in the arena, there is a chance that they will either be paired against another outsider or a Sil'nyy at Thumac's domain in the fight. Should the group not have a challenger among them, they will be sent to Selgamed. Guests of Central City need to respect other people's property. Campsites belong to the people who set them up. No one but them should be touching their food or supplies, nor should anyone else be sleeping or using their area. Tents are closely packed together as there isn't much room to use due to overcrowding. It's very easy to get confused or even get lost among the tents. Should an accident happen, such as mistaking another person's tent as one's own or sitting at the wrong campfire, a proper apology is all that is needed. Intentional theft of food or supplies can occur, but it's not a common issue. Fires in the middle of campsites need to be put out before the last person in the group goes to sleep. At the first time the last person who is awake is starting to nod off, they should immediately put out their campfire. This prevents accidentally setting their own camp on fire, and should their camp go up in flames, so too with the rest of the camps, as they are closely packed together. This can lead to many deaths if this rule is not followed. Thankfully, to prevent this, most people staying within the city put out other groups' fires to help out. Because of this, there hasn't been a spreading fire to this degree in decades. Brawls outside the arena are not allowed, but tend to still happen. Overcrowding and bumping into each other can lead to a heated argument or even a full-on fight. This can start as 2 people going at it, but if they were part of groups, people may take sides and the fight becomes even bigger and harder to handle. Cho'Gathka warriors may need to be called to break it up. The groups that partook in this illegal brawl are sent to Selgamed on separate ferries. The 2 that began the fight, no matter whose fault it was initially, are forced to fight each other in the arena. These arena fights are often treated as mid-game or a break in the tournament and are not official fights. Winner gets to go home immediately after, while the loser has to help clean up the arena after the current tournament is over. Should someone die as a result of a fight in the arena, that's just something that happens. No one would bat an eye at that. Everyone knows that there's a chance that will happen to them should they sign up. However, should someone die outside of the arena and is not a result of fight within it, that's considered murder. Because of the tightly packed nature of the city, there's typically plenty of witnesses to point fingers at the culprit. However, in the case of an assassination where no witness could be produced, or at least there isn't any known culprit, an investigation would take a long time, and sometimes the culprit is never found due to the chaos of the city's nature. In the case that someone has been caught or a culprit was pointed out thanks to witnesses, the murderer will face a punishment based on 1 or more of the 4 clans that the crowd gets to decide. This punishment will be done within the arena. Should the Cho'Gathka death be chosen by the onlookers, the murderer will have to face a multitude of Cho'Gathka warriors all at once and will likely get beaten to death. If the Hognur'Gor death is chosen, the onlookers can watch as the murderer slowly dies of poisoning. The tacticians of Urukgar will treat their oncoming death like a game show, creating traps that could cause death that the murderer will have to navigate through, and the smiths of Ushmog will force the murderer to wear armor that would slowly kill them. Sil'nyy Cho'Gathka is the current master of the clan, like her father before her and her father's father. In fact, no other Sil'nyy bloodline has been able to claim the role of leader of the clan since it was created. It's believed that Sil'nyy is a descendant of Drazar Cho'Gathka, the original and first clan master of the Geographer. How they managed to retain this role through the years solely has to do with aggressive training since birth and selective breeding. Only the strongest of the Sil'nyy can mate within the master of the clan bloodline to ensure that the master of the clan role stays with them. Since this is a fishing village, taking care of the environment is important to the Geographer. Their fish and alligators could be badly affected by littering. The Geographer believe that an old disease that many Sil'nyy succumbed to, but mostly their clan, had started because of dumping old chum and other waste in the waters. Thankfully, once the cure was found and they kept their waters clean, the disease has yet to come back. Whenever the Hognur'Gor come to fish, they are not allowed to use fishing nets or other large contraptions to catch more than their fair share. They are not allowed to use any dragons, should any of their hunters be one, nor are they allowed to use magic to fish. They are also allowed to snag an alligator or two, but no more. Any fishing gators caught must go through Sil'nyy, and they must be kept alive until after. She makes sure that her guests have what they need, but no more than that. Because of this, some of the fish and alligators caught are returned to the water. Sil'nyy finds parasite-ridden or sickly fish among those that are caught, she will gladly let them go back and fish some more. There are restrictions on fishing and alligator hunting, even for the Geographer. Fish have to reach a certain size when caught, otherwise it's returned to the waters. This is because the fish isn't fully grown and needs time to reach maturity to help the fish population stay above the threshold. Dragons and those who have a natural affinity for magic are to stay in certain parts of the marsh to avoid overfishing. Alligators are also expected to be released under certain conditions. They cannot be intentionally caught unless they stole a fish from a fisherman from the line, and it has to be a full-grown adult. Even though some dogs are off limits to guests, especially hybrids and other races that are visiting, it's mostly for reasons such as repair or alligator-infested waters. In the latter case, Sil'nyy children are to go in groups around these areas, should they even want to venture there. Some Geographer keep a close eye on these dogs, just in case a kid comes wandering too close without their friends. These single children are often brought directly to Sil'nyy for a good scolding to get the point across. Until they have passed the trial of age, they must stay in groups to protect themselves from the dangers of gators. If one of their clan members are murdered, the perpetrator, regardless of origin, will be tied to a post at the end of one of the docks and will be left to be eaten alive by the alligators of the marsh. If there are other factors made as a defense for the perpetrator by members of the Geographer clan, then they can keep their life. These factors will include self-defense or a fight that got way too heated, which resulted in unintentional death. Sometimes they are still punished, but at least they'll still be alive. Lesser crimes such as theft or overfishing, known as theft from the people, have different results depending on whether or not the perpetrator is Geographer, a different clan's member, or another race visiting the village. In the cases that the criminal is of the Geographer, Sil'nyy oversees a trade-off. These are when the victim of the theft gets to take the same amount or an equivalent from the thief as they initially took from them. In the case of overfishing, should they ignore the warnings of their fellow clanmates, regardless of whether or not it's a single individual or a group of people, their clan name will be ripped from them and they will be Hognur'Gor, banished from the village. Should the perpetrator be of another clan other than Geographer, theft and overfishing will result in being booted from not just the home of Geographer, but also from the surrounding territory. They will not be allowed to return, and they can, and probably will be, attacked on sight by Geographer who recognize them. If they had to be there for any reason, then constant monitoring is required either by a willing Geographer or someone the Geographer trusts from that other clan. Visitors, also known as guests or an outsider of another race, are a different story altogether. Should they perform an act of theft either towards an individual Geographer or through overfishing, willfully ignoring any warnings given to them while they were committing the act, Geographer will simply grab the person, if they are small enough, and toss them out into the marsh, forcing them to swim back on their own. Of course, alligators are a danger in these cases, but the villagers don't really care if the gators get a hold of the perpetrator. To end any minor disputes or rivalries, individual Geographer are expected to participate in a mini fishing duel rather than brawl. These challenges range from being the first to get a certain type of fish, getting the most amount of fish, or getting the biggest fish under a time limit. It's a catch and release kind of game. Loser has to cave to the winner. Sometimes it's even used just for fun among some of the less aggressive adults, and especially among the children. Since the upload of this video, the forums have been open to the Dragon class and Maginus class tiers of our Patreon. I've decided to take the time to inform you of what benefits these tiers offer. Dragon and Maginus overlap each other to a degree, so I'll start with Dragon. The Dragon class tier is only $10 and grants a shout out on YouTube videos like this, gives you behind the scenes, exclusive voting, early access content, including being one of the first people to join our roleplay forums before we're even open, and live streams, some of which entails joining the official TD Era Construction Discord, where you can meet our construction crew members. There is also access to the calendar, which shows when we'll be working on what for the forums, and a private board on our forums that you can password protect and post just about whatever you want, and invite other forum members if you so choose. The Machinist class tier is $20 a month, and, along with everything the Dragon class tier grants you, it also gives a number of other more exclusive benefits such as playtesting work-in-progress lore, which includes unreleased races and events. You gain official lore homages to one of your roleplay characters, and you can also influence future races and our bestiary with lore and design. If you're interested in donating to these tiers, there's a link in the video description below. Hognur'Gor is the eldest of the Maestro clans, reaching 152 years of age, if anyone had to guess. He looks akin to a feeble old man, but he's stronger than any of the rest of his clan members, and he's the top healer as well. Knows many different ways of healing, including techniques to treat wounds and ways to prevent illnesses. He serves as a stand-in practitioner or healer during emergencies, both on the battlefield, at the arena, and in his own village, and he puts extra effort in when it comes to injured or sickly children. For the past 60 years, has retained his position as Master of the Hognur'Gor clan. He obtained this role by default when he won all rounds against his fellow clan members during their Patrikios 60 years ago. The former Master of the Hognur'Gor clan, Lanadu, was felled by a late-treated gem cobra bite. Having long lost sense in one of her legs, she did not notice she was bitten until it was too late. She died in her own bed the eve of her return from a marketplace in Selgamed. It is theorized that this is where she was bitten. Despite having won the position by default, has yet to be outlasted by any of his clan members during the Patrikios. Fights against him have been known to last several days, if not weeks. He overpreps and has the most potent of potions and tonics at his disposal. Some of the stuff he makes can actually harm his opponent for him, usually poisoning them or forcing them into fogbrain. Not a fogbrain state, but actually forcing them into using their magic. This allows him to one-up his opponents during these fights, and is how he has managed to outlast his fellow clanmates to retain his title. Prior to certain kinds of weather conditions, such as torrential rains or tornado-like winds, it is forbidden for Hognur'Gor to stay in their homes. They are expected to evacuate in a timely manner, doing the best he can to help his people, and to stay at Central City in tents until weather has calmed enough for their return. This type of weather is not common, but it can be predicted due to wind patterns and cloud formations. As unpredictable as the weather around home of Hognur'Gor is, it's a relief that they can predict when these kinds of disasters will happen. Returning to their homes after the extreme weather has passed often reveals major damage to the village. Some unlucky stone pillars will have fallen, and the houses on top of them collapse, leaving a handful of Sil'nyy homeless for a while. Some roofing or flooring may have given way during these storms, while the more lucky people will probably have lost some personal belongings to the extreme wind blowing them right out of the flaps of their doorway. The master of the clan is not able to reconstruct these buildings by himself. No one of his clan can. Instead, he visits the Urukgar clan for a helping hand, due to their knowledge and skills. The Urukgar will take time and effort out of their day to rebuild lost homes and trade for Fejural's healing skills. In return for the homes being returned to their prior condition or completely rebuilt, Fejural helps heal the Urukgar sick and injured whenever he is called. Hunting, gathering, and fishing can be a bit complicated, especially if it is a large group of Hognur'Gor. Their clan leader will always join them on these expeditions. Fejural comes to make sure that his clan members obey any laws and to make nice with the locals. He doesn't want his clan to get in trouble because that will reflect on him as a master of the clan. Causing trouble for other clans can get them banned from entering, and this can cause issues with hunting, as it's necessary to survive. For the Hognur'Gor, murder is more of an umbrella term. If one's actions were to lead to the death of another person, whether it is intentional or through a domino effect, it is still considered a criminal act. Many years ago, before Fejural became the master of the clan, a Sil'nyy had stolen a family's furs and blankets from their home while they were away. Unbeknownst to the thief, that night would be below freezing temperatures. This led to the death of the entire family that had fallen victim to the thief. In the eyes of the Hognur'Gor, by stealing the furs and blankets, which led to the death of the family, the thief had become a murderer. Depending on the way the victim was killed, a murderer of the name Hognur'Gor will face the same fate as the victim. In this case, should a murderer have killed through domino effect, they will be subjected to the victim's last moments, i.e. being left in a cold building window first, or ways to warm themselves during a freezing night. The Hognur'Gor way is to replicate all conditions that led to the victim's death, and should the murderer survive these, they will be treated as if they had never committed the act in the first place. The murder isn't swept under the rug entirely, but it's relatively forgotten. Those who murder that are not Hognur'Gor, including Sil'nyy from other clans and visitors of other races, will be promptly returned to their home cities or the nearest prisons relative to their home. This means that they will be caged, with an enchanted shackle around their ankle to help prevent escape, and transported. Volunteer Hognur'Gor will guard them all the way back to their homes, even if it's on a continent on the other side of the world. Once the murderer has been left in the hands of their people, a ban will be placed on them so that they will never be able to return to the home of Hognur'Gor without consequence of death. A Hognur'Gor that commits the act of thievery from a neighbor faces a home arrest, i.e. they are locked in their own home for a certain amount of time, depending on how valuable the item they stole was to the victim. They're not allowed to leave their home without permission from the master of the clan, but they will be well taken care of while they serve their time. They'll be given periodic meals, 3 per day, and if they get sick or somehow injured, Tajurl or someone he trusts will heal them. Theft from an outsider is treated a little different from a murder. Not only do they report them to the proper authorities, i.e. from where the outsider supposedly came, but they will also put out a bounty on them. All bounties require the thief to be returned alive. Reward amounts are given based on what the thief had stolen from their clan and how much the clan values the stolen items. Once the thief is in their hands, they take them to the very authorities that they had originally reported the thief to, so they may face proper justice by their own people. Unlike a murderer, a thief can return to the village for a later visit, but they will be watched with careful eyes. The master of the clan, a 14-year-old male, Sil'nyy by the name of Enoch, won his title due to a forfeit. He joined the Patrikios almost as soon as he was able to join the clan after completing the trial of age, and because of this, he was the youngest tactician to ever fight. Then, after he had won against so many of his older clanmates through brains alone, he ended up going toe-to-toe with his own father, the current leader of the clan back then. Urukgar had been clan leader for nearly 7 years prior to this incident and remained undefeated. However, his son was outsmarting him at every turn, making strength a key factor in his being able to withstand the child's tricks. Recognizing that he was going against his very clan's ideals, he chose to forfeit his title instead. Enoch was the first to enact rules over the community garden. Prior to this, anyone in need of food would simply pick what they need from the garden, regardless if they were a clan member or not. This would sometimes leave the garden void of any food needed by the clan members themselves. He was the one to come up with the idea to trade produce for either services or tangible goods, depending on what the members of Urukgar needed at the time, and make appropriate decisions on the spot. He was the one who also came up with the keepers of the garden, so that a myriad of people could be available to consult when it comes to plants. Information of the other clans is supplied by the clans themselves. They come to Enoch for help if they are low on specific supplies. Enoch has been known to be well informed when it comes to pricing and tracking types of merchants. It is common knowledge by the clans that Enoch also has an elite group that he sends out periodically to check out marketplaces ahead of time, to scan for danger and to update of what wares and foods were on sale, who sold what they looked like, what their names were, the location that they were last seen, etc. With this information, he is able to somewhat accurately track their movements across the continents. This process was done by every master of the clan prior to Enoch. Because their weather is often sunny, with a small chance of light rain, the need to repair or rebuild structures within the home of Urukgar is almost non-existent. Instead, Enoch has the qualified members at beck and call whenever neighboring clans need a new structure or repairs to old one. Of course, this is all done through trade yet again, a service for a service in this case. A prime example would be home of Hognur'Gor's constant upkeep and trade for their healers. Should anyone pick yew berries, whether they are Urukgar from another clan or a total outsider, suspicion would automatically fall upon them. Yew berries cannot be consumed without promise of death. They are poisonous. They could kill a Sil'nyy with good enough quantity. Spotting someone picking yew berries will result in immediate capture and interrogation done by the clan leader. Should the reason for picking the berries seem innocent enough, the entirety of the clan will watch the person like a hawk until they are done using the berries. Suspicion is not clear just because the person is done using the yew berries. This kind of action will follow them for as long as they remain in Thumac's domain. Urukgar have a false reputation. Rumors spread by outsiders that they chop off hands in retaliation for theft. In reality, a good scolding followed by lowered hospitality is usually the result of someone getting caught trying to steal from them. If one were to take from the community garden without the permission from a keeper of the garden, the city may knock their block off, but this won't always be the case, as not every clan member knows about the more restrictive rules since Enoch took over. This law is applied to everyone that walks within home of Urukgar, whether they live there or are just visiting. There's actually no set instructions on how to treat someone who steals. It's honestly up to the Sil'nyy that fell victim and those who empathize with them. Murder is not okay, under any circumstance, within Urukgar. There's no excuse that murderer can use to explain away why someone had died at their hands. Not only are those who are deemed murderers banished from the village, but so too are those who associate with them. They will also go out of their way to ensure that none of the supplies that they obtain will ever fall into the murderer's hands. However, everyone is given the benefit of the doubt unless it's painfully obvious that they are the murderer. It's up to the alleged murderer to prove they are innocent, and for those who are suspicious of them to prove that they are not. The final decision, with all testimonies and evidence reviewed, is up to the master of the clan. Like theft, this rule is applied to everyone. The Sil'nyy in charge of this clan is a woman by the name of Lemura. She is mute, as in unable to talk even if she wanted to, and this is due to trauma from when she was young. There was an encounter with a Tlakaelel that resulted in a serious injury, but she would have died if her father wasn't there, and purposely making noises to attract the beast to him. Despite this traumatic past, she's a fine smithy and a strong warrior in her own right. Lemura's reign started shortly after the fog settled around their village. The dangers of the Tlakaelel were not yet known, and as a prodigy child, Lemura was given the full scope of the village and its surroundings to do whatever it is she wanted, even if it was just to have fun for the day. Shortly after surviving the encounter with the beast, she decided to have a go at becoming the master of the clan, especially since the current, at the time, leader didn't really want anything about his village to change, even after the fog surrounded them. He wanted things to stay as they were, pre-fog. Lemura knew this posed a danger to her fellow neighbors and swore that she would change things to keep everyone safe. After winning the Patrikios, the laws of home of Ushmog changed drastically. There was to be no music. After seeing what happened to Lemura, her neighbors didn't mind this rule at all, and she hired and stationed Geographer warriors around the village and especially around the most used workshop. Villagers were to remain indoors unless they were planning on working in one of their workshops, traveling to hunt or visit another city, or to collect water from the village's single well. She was originally going to implement a law about visitors, either from the other Sil'nyy clans or outsiders, but thankfully the fog scared most would-be visitors from ever coming close. Since Tlakaelel practically took over the village's hunting grounds, Lemura has had to alternate with the Hognur'Gor around the different territories of Thumac's domain. Not only do they hunt near the other villages, but they also ferry across the waters to Sil'nyy and hunt there. Lemura joins the hunters on these trips to Sil'nyy, intent on helping out the Urukgar in return for more coin or rare items that could be traded while they are in Sil'nyy. This allows them to get hold of better quality metals and enchanted gems for their armor and weapons. In turn, they retrieve supplies that the Urukgar requested and deliver them once they return home. If an argument with a vendor on Sil'nyy escalates, or if one of her clan members acts aggressively towards another individual there, Lemura will lead them to the law of the city or town. Sometimes they are even left behind to find their own way back home. The same can be said when the Ushmog clan acts up while they are in another clan's territory. She will always let the other clan handle her people, no matter what the punishment is. In Lemura's eyes, if a clan member cannot respect her enough to follow her rules, then they are a disgrace, unless they are proven or deemed innocent by the people she left them with. An Ushmog that is a known thief is a disgrace to the clan. Since the clan are the traders for the Sil'nyy race, a thief among them could cause issues during travels. Because of this, any Ushmog who are found guilty of theft are never allowed outside of the village. The only place they're allowed to visit would be Central City, but they may only leave the village under heavy supervision from a fellow clan member and must first gain approval for this travel by the master of the clan. If anything goes missing while an outsider is visiting, whether they are from another clan or from a different continent entirely, the outsider is immediately deemed the culprit. An old punishment prior to the fog was a necklace or shackles of bell that were enchanted so that they could not be removed. That way they would know where the thief was at all times during their visit. However, since the Tlakaelel had become a threat, that idea was tossed out the window as it needlessly endangered the outsider. They have since created different cuffs and necklaces, ones without bells, with a non-removal enchantment, and a new Tlakaelel tracking enchantment instead. This is often paired with a ring so that the clan leader can know where the thief is at all times. Those who kill who are part of the Ushmog clan will be given a chance to live, but only if they can survive their punishment. They will first be bound and gagged, and then dragged deep into the fog outside of the village, where they will be tied to either a large rock or a tree. There they will be ungagged and have a necklace of bells put around their neck, one that has no enchantment on. The rope that they are tied with are knotted in such a way that they would be able to untie themselves, but not without enough movement to ring the bells around their neck, attracting a Tlakaelel to their position. They manage to untie themselves, remove the bells from around their neck, and make it all the way back to the village without getting mortally wounded or killed, then they will be absolved of their crime. However, the very act of the crime will never be forgotten. Outsiders, either from the other clans or from other continents, should they be found guilty of murder, will be forced to fight in the arena of Central City. Their opponent will end up being either relative or friend of the victim, or if neither of these could be found and or the victim had been important to the village, the murderer will have to fight a Tlakaelel. This Tlakaelel would have been captured as a group effort, with a mixture of Geographer, Hognur'Gor, Urukgar, and Ushmog clan members working together to take it down. The creature's cage is rather large, and it's on wheels. A ramp leads into the cage, which the Tlakaelel is tricked into running up when Sil'nyy knocks on the outside of the cage on the opposite end. This is so that they can return it to its cage once the fight is over. So far, no one's been able to survive the Tlakaelel. Rather than being inspired by real-life languages like other races, the Sil'nyy have a somewhat more difficult naming system. First names are gendered, but this rule is really only followed by the main 4 clans. Hognur'Gor and those outside the clans in general don't have to follow the gendered rule. The standard for first names is to have 2 or 3 syllables. An apostrophe can be used, but doesn't have to be. An L always followed by an N will be silent. Male first names end with a consonant. Y's are never used. Female first names end with a vowel. Examples of male names include Hognur'Gor, Magus, Borgin, and Atmarder. Examples of female names include Zinami, Surga, Emni, and Grimant. Certain names are based on what clan they are part of, which is the clan they joined when they passed the trial of age. Some don't have clans and were either forced to take a last name to represent they were exiled, or they were born and raised outside of Thumac's domain, in which case their surnames might not even match the clan. In the latter case, both first and last names can be picked up from the races living around the Sil'nyy. The Geographer are the clan of warriors, the Hognur'Gor are the clan of healing, the Urukgar are the clan of tacticians, Ushmog are the clan of smiths, and Hognur'Gor are the exiled or the outcast. Examples of full names include Zinami Hognur'Gor, Magus Hognur'Gor, and Drazar Geographer. The Sil'nyy believe in the great warlord Hogl'Gor Thumac and his 5 thanes, Drazar Geographer, Zinami Hognur'Gor, Borgor and Urukgar, Atmarder Ushmog, and Magus Hognur'Gor. Thumac created the Sil'nyy to be the perfect warriors and the perfect neighbors. Despite being strong and willing to go to war, they are expected to be helpful and kind. He also created the race-exclusive magic Fogbrain to give his warriors an advantage in a pinch. Hogl'Gor Thumac set his 5 thanes to be head of the families, now known as clans. Drazar Geographer was to raise his Sil'nyy in the west and continue to train them in the ways of strength, courage, and determination to protect the clans from enemies. Zinami Hognur'Gor raised her warriors in the east to be better healers, to specialize them to focus, remain calm, and use quick thinking. Her goal was to ensure the clans were healthy and able-bodied. Borgor and Urukgar was tasked to raise his warriors in the south as tacticians, to strategize defenses, to plan, and even sabotage their enemies to ensure victory. Atmarder Ushmog was required to raise his warriors in the north, raising them as smiths utilizing good craftsmanship, durability, and practicality to provide the clans with better protection. Then there was Magus Hognur'Gor. He was tasked with raising his warriors in the capital, the direct center between all the clans. Hognur'Gor's clan was to be the center of trade, a clan where Sil'nyy can go to test their skills against the best of the best. His warriors were to encompass everything: fighting, healing, tactics, and smithing. This clan was to be the leading example and the one to keep the peace among all clans by having this huge range of talent among his warriors. But all good things must come to an end. Magus planned on using the Fogbrain magic, his warriors behind him, to conquer all 4 of the other clans. Zinami, with all her wisdom, foresaw this treachery. Along with Drazar, Borgin, and Atmarder, formed the Patrikios Gother's Zot as a way to choose the strongest and wisest of the Sil'nyy as the leaders of the families, now known as the masters of the clans. This was done to ensure that the society the great Hogl'Gor Thumac created would not falter. After this pact was made, any Sil'nyy bearing the name Hognur'Gor was exiled as punishment punishment for Magus' betrayal of his sibling. As to whether or not Hognur'Gor was real, most Sil'nyy believe he was. Doesn't really matter, as the Sil'nyy will follow his guidance and wisdom that he left behind. There are no known records of Tlakaelel and his thanes, except for one obscure one, an old bloodstained journal of an unknown traveler donated to the Mawayan Library in Esfandel. In it, there is a roughly drawn image, sketched with ink, of 5 male Sil'nyy and a single female Sil'nyy, and directly underneath the image are the words Hognur'Gor and his thanes, kind but fierce defenders. All pages have mysteriously been ripped out. Thank you to our patron, Craft Kraken, for your donation.